Hello, everyone. Just thought this was an interesting chat. This is on Pap's channel last night, and I didn't know I was discussing Chrisy Morris because my eyes aren't very good these days. But yeah, I found out later on I had been discussing with Chris Morris. This is about immigration, and tell me what you think.
Well, an opinion. It's just really quickly on the immigration one. Obviously, there are so many different variables that need to be taken into account when you talk about immigration. But quite simply, most of the immigration arguments are like sort of like lopping a twig off a tree. What we need to do is strike the root, and the root of the problem is that we support the bombing and the pilfering and pillaging from foreign countries, which makes the refugee problem. So if as a country, we were a little bit more accommodating to other nations, and I don't mean sending them money, I mean, supplying bombs to bomb with for oppressive regimes and stuff like that, we wouldn't have the people trying to get into this country. So it is something that isn't a quick fix thing. We've got to strike the root rather than lopping at the twigs.
Well, I believe it wouldn't change a thing, and they would do the same thing they've always done.
If your country's all right, why would you leave it?
Yeah. But then Sunnis and Shiites kill themselves at a higher rate than anyone else does.
Yep.
They kill each other at a higher rate. They're always
Irish and English kill themselves. People generally kill each other.
Yes, so it doesn't really hold up to say that because we get involved, that's why they come over here and do what they do to us this side. So
and touching on the whole racism thing as well. It's like if you look at places,
there'll always be sectarian violence. But no matter, it's a human condition rather than sort of like any specific creed, colour, anything like that. Ultimately, I don't think everyone wants to be where they were born, really. I mean, people do want to travel, but ultimately, you want to be in a country that that you've grown up in, that speaks your mother tongue, stuff like that. And, to have people want better, it's fine.
It depends where you're brought up. It depends where you're brought up. If you're brought up in a place that your upbringing was really bad and the country's really bad, you would want to better yourself. That's what humans do. They always want to go to someone else to improve their life, and I don't blame anyone for trying to improve themselves. You wouldn't want to stay.
That's an immigrant, and then you've got to consider the difference between an immigrant and a refugee. A refugee is leaving a place that it might not, the place that they might not want to leave for very serious reasons, like the places like being bombed and whatever else. And people and this is I've got a massive problem with people talking about people as illegal. It's like no one's illegal. We're all human beings. No one should be deemed to be illegal as such. And if we looked after our foreign policy a little bit better, we wouldn't have such a refugee and immigration problem.
That isn't a golden ones because like humans do, they want to go where the milk and honey is. And if you want to better yourself, and you say you had open borders throughout the world, then everyone would go to the more affluent parts of the world and abandon quite a lot of the most needy countries. So you would just strip the countries of their assets and their professionals anyway.
Yeah. Well, if you, one of my favourites, if anyone wanted to look at it, is called Immigration by Gumball. And basically, this chewing gum is what it is, but the guy's American, so it's called Immigration by Gumball. And that explains that theory perfectly about how the best people leave the worst countries, and obviously that negatively affects them. But ultimately, a lot of people, there are better countries than this. I'd love to go over to Australia or New Zealand, get better climate, stuff like that, better work-life balance and all that. But
how would you get into Australia now? How would you get into Australia?
You wouldn't want to live under Shergar.
Sorry, say again,
New Zealand, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, sorry. So, say, for example, you want to emigrate to Australia. What would you need to emigrate to Australia? Because you need a lot.
I personally don't want to. I don't want to emigrate. I do like here. This is my home. This is where I live. You know, there are better places that I could go, and I thought of going to, but ultimately, I want to live where I was born. I do like my homeland. So, you know, I'm basically happy here. But if we started getting bombed, I'd be thinking Australia looks bloody good. And that is what causes, you know, an immigration and refugee problem. It's the place that you are becoming that bad that you need to you know, and you can do better somewhere else. Yeah. So, and if we stop with our foreign policy.
I'm trying to work out why you would travel like through the whole of Europe from like, say, if you were coming from Syria, you would go to Turkey, then you would go to Greece.
Countries, no.
And then also countries, and you go through Italy, France, Spain, or if you went through the Alps, you would reach, say, 7 to 10 countries, all safe countries.
But I'll tell you exactly.
Yeah, but they might push you on.
They know
milk and honey. It's milk and honey.
But they know that the UK.
No, they push you on those countries, because otherwise, the first safe country you get to,
they can claim asylum in every country. They can claim asylum in every country on the way through. They don't want to claim asylum.
Yeah, but the thing is, from please stop me if I'm wrong, but what you're basically saying is the first safe country you get to, you should become a refugee, and you should. That's where you're saying you want to be. But that country might turn around and say, no, we're not taking all the refugees, so you are going to be moved on. And I'm sure
the EU, isn't it?
Let's not get into the EU and Brexit argument, but the whole point of it is that France and Germany that have comparable populations to us take double the refugees that we take. So is it unreasonable of us to complain?
Merkel's had about 3 million.
Sorry?
Merkel invited, I think it was 3 million about 5-6 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't looked at the statistics for a while, but roughly, France and Germany have taken on double the amount of refugees that we take. How big is France?
How big is France and how big is Germany? Because if we go on square miles, we are more populated than France and Germany at the moment.
Yeah. Yes, we are, but we also are overpopulated.
If we're more populated by square mile than France and Germany, because we're the most populated in modern Europe, I think it is, we're the most populated. Right? I know we are in France and Germany. Then it's not really adding up.
The Schengen Agreement.
Whether it adds up or not, we have got room. And don't think that I'm saying that, you know, unsustainable housing and stuff like that.
Tell that to the people who are on 5-7 year housing list.
Yeah. Tell that.
That isn't. That's where you're blaming the players rather than the game.
No, I'm blaming the numbers. Because I'm blaming the numbers. So there's more numbers now. There's more numbers.
Yeah, so the people that are fleeing war and whatever else and simply looking for a safe place to live with their families, it's not their fault, but they get a lot of the shit from it.
I didn't know France was at war at the moment.
No, I'm not saying France is at war, but France take roughly double the amount of immigrants that we take. So is it unreasonable for France to say, hang on a minute, why can't you guys take some more?
How big is France?
Look, it doesn't matter how big France is.
Okay. I'll break it down the numbers, right?
It matters that we are just as affluent, if not, you know.
Check that message out at the bottom. Krinko, whether you like it or not, an enlarged clitoris doesn't count as a penis.
Richer than France, I believe that we're
honest country. Someone say affluent at the moment. It's crazy. Someone say that.
See what he's got to say. I mean, even though it's pretty annoying, I guess.
The reality is we have over 300,000 plus a year migrants coming into the country. Now that's from legal and illegal, so 300,000 plus a year. That's numbers. That is the size of Cardiff, for example, every year.
But how many did you say Merkel had in the other year?
Well, Merkel, she said invited everyone, and what she caused a huge train of people coming from Africa and Syria all the way through Europe. Remember those big lines of people you would see? That was directly after Merkel said, "Come, we'll take 1 million a year, we'll take whatever," and they all came. And they caused chaos. They caused chaos in Germany in a sense because they weren't really prepared for the numbers, and they just kept on coming because Merkel said, "Come."
But without knowing the specifics, obviously, I can't discuss that one because I don't know the specifics. But what I'm trying to say
she wasn't
is that
she
when
wasn't
we
expecting
she must be amount of,
and they came.
But they coped. I think they coped. I mean, it's having an influx of people is always going to present problems. But ultimately, if those people had safe homes, safe countries that were offered a decent standard of living, they probably wouldn't come. You'll always get people that want to emigrate and immigrate, but the actual refugees that are leaving war-torn countries such as Syria, poor countries, poor African countries. You can't blame people for wanting a safe and prosperous family, life in a safe and prosperous country.
But Chrisy, the government have said themselves that many of these people coming over are economic migrants.
Yeah. Well, they are classed as economic migrants. Like you said, they travel.
Do we believe the government? Do we believe the government?
And how much money are they?
Do we believe the government and economic migrants? I mean, would you call an English family that are going to Australia for a better life economic immigrants?
No, and the reason why you've fallen into your own trap here, and I'm explaining because we spoke about it.
I'll answer that because friends have gone over there.
Yeah, let me tell you what you need.
Have a sponsor for 6 months. They have to have
a job,
amount of money, and they
have a job
to support.
One at a time, guys. You're talking over each other
before they get accepted.
Okay, sorry, but like I said, I was going to bring this up earlier on. To get to Australia, you have to have a job. You have to have a lease on a house signed. You have to have X amount of money. I think it's 25 grand before they even think about fucking farting. Right? And you must have school for your kids, all linked up. All that needs to be arranged before you even get there. Right? You can visit there to sort it out. It's all got to be done. And you've got to have a job.
And even if you've got that, you're on probation for, I think it's 6 months or a year.
Yeah, but how does that affect what I said? Because I'm agreeing with all of that. But ultimately, someone that's leaving, someone that's leaving this country for a better life in Australia is an economic migrant, aren't they?
Is that dog in the chat, Dan?
No. They're migrating to his own place, but they're providing 25 grand in the bank, a job, a school. They're providing everything. There's all that in advance. They've all got to sort that out. What happens in the UK is you arrive on a dinghy, because I filmed these dinghies 2 years ago in Dover. They arrive in dinghies, they then go on a coach, they then go straight to a hotel, and then basically they spread throughout the country.
On that one, but how do we expect those people?
That's nothing like people emigrating to Australia.
How do we expect those people that still want a better life for their family? There's no difference in their motivation. But how do we expect those people from poorer countries to get those things to bring to another country? It would be impossible.
Okay.
No Syrian is going to be able to bring 25 grand over. And have all that sort.
They spend between 1,000 and 5,000 euros to get into a dinghy. I know that because I've interviewed them.
And it's not.
All right.
And that's everything they've got. That's everything they've got.
Well,
obviously.
Well, it's cost them a lot to get through Europe, surely.
Well, however they've done it, however they've done it, you still can't knock the motivation for them. They just want a better life for their families.
Look,
And perhaps if we want them in the country that they're coming from, they wouldn't leave that country.
Is if they come in illegally on a dinghy, they're in a hotel within a day. Now, if they do it legally, like in Jordan, we got a 50,000 a refugee camp that people are applying legally. It takes like 5 years. So this is the bit. It's like legal's going to take 5 years. Illegal takes 24 hours, and a payment to some human smugglers. Bang.
But so that's the fault of the system, not of the people that are playing the system.
Yeah. I'm not blaming the people. You're getting it all mixed up. Yeah. I'm not blaming the people.
No. Just checking we're on the same page. So what is the remedy? What is the remedy for the situation? Because again, what we're talking about is locking the branches. What we need to talk about is how to strike the root. And striking the root is we wouldn't have an immigration or refugee problem as bad if the countries where these people were coming from weren't being bombed and exploited.
Here we go.
Well, no, it's true. I mean, the Syrian refugee problem.
The reality is we've got to discourage people for making that crossing across the channel, and the way to discourage it is to do this offshore. Forget about Rwanda. Rwanda are taking 500. They took 600 in 2 days this week, so that would be all over for Rwanda in 2 days. What you got to do is do it offshore. I've said it before. Get all the ferries, the cruise ships. A lot of them are unused. It's like 50, 75. And we put them on there and we process them on there. And what we got to do is make sure they don't beat the queue. They go to the back of the queue. The people that have done it the legal way keep on going through legally. So that way then they do not get the incentive to try and bust the queue and do it.
That one, mate.
Well, you can
it should be based on need, not on chronology. It should be based on need. The most needy people should be helped first.
Legal. The ones legally first.
The thing that really concerns me is looking statistically, the amount that come over, the biggest majority of them are young men.
Fighting age men, yes.
There's a very hold on.
Because they're ganged in for fighting in a war that they don't agree with.
Right.
It's not like they've left their mothers and daughters there, though.
But the thing is, right?
Mothers and daughters don't get forced into the armies.
Yeah.
Mothers and daughters are relatively safe.
They get raped and murdered.
Women get raped and murdered over here all the time.
It happens
mainstream media rubbish.
Especially when you leave the females of the family on their own. That's what happens.
Okay, then explain.
It's not.
Birmingham.
Don't get me wrong.
It's one of the beauties of war. It's one of the beauties of war. That's what happens in war. It's one of the beauties of war.
Can I finish my point?
It does happen in war, but it's not the massive thing that it's portrayed to be by the mainstream media.
Okay.
I mean, if you listen to the mainstream media, the old Bill are doing a cracking job, aren't they? But why are we all here? We know different.
Sorry, go on. Thank you. The point I was making is what concerns me is the biggest majority of them that are coming over, they're all young men. Very few of them are women with children. If they're so desperate to come over, surely you bring the females and the children over as a family to try and house them. And the concerning thing is not just the fact that it's all young men. They've been brought over. They've not been vetted. Their backgrounds haven't been checked or looked into. You don't know who they are, where they've came from. They could have came from fucking anywhere. They could have nefarious motives, for all you know. But they're bringing them in here anyway. Where's the security? Where's the border points? Where's the checkpoints? Where is the fucking security? They could be coming in here for fucking, say, Afghanistan or whatever. You know what I mean? As they could be terrorists for all we know, because we don't know. Not been checked out. So they could be coming here to target us.
I think you had that in Scotland a few years ago, DJ, when there was a few that came in, they went on stabbing sprees in Scotland.
Aye, and the centre. Yep.
He went on a shit Wi-Fi. He went on a stabbing spree because he had shit Wi-Fi in his hotel.
Yeah.
Like I said, there's
But one is it? We shouldn't just use one idiot, one arsehole's story to
Okay.
you know, to
November the 11th last year, he blew himself up in a cab. He got all that fucked up. He was trying to blow up people in a cathedral. He was a failed asylum seeker.
Yeah. Right.
The one in Reading. Sorry, I just want to put, he says this, but like I'm just telling you the last couple of terrorist attacks. There was 3 gay guys beheaded in a park in Reading. You want to Google it. There wasn't a lot of thing about it. That was another failed asylum seeker, just come out of prison, was going to get...
There's one thing, there's one thing, but I have to make adamantly clear. I am not calling everyone who comes over terrorists. I'm not doing that. But what I'm saying is, because of the little few things here and there that have happened, that is an example right there of what is the potential, what could happen. I'm not saying all of them are doing that, but the potential...
Yeah, but it's been magnified. It's been magnified by the media and by the government.
Yeah.
Now, I mean,
I've just given you the last 3 terrorist attacks.
But it does happen.
If you check the statistics, most years more people die from bumblebees than terrorism.
Yeah. The point is, but
no, it's true. Check the statistics.
This is a retarded argument.
The lack of checks and balances. The lack of checks and balances.
I mean, I can't remember what year it was.
I'm sorry, even now, the next day, that is one of the most retarded comments I've heard for a long time. Because bumblebees kill 4 people a year on average, then when we get a year where we don't get, say, terrorist attacks that get completed, that actually do follow through instead of being halted, stopped, he thinks that corresponds bumblebees.
But 1 year, no one died from a terror attack in the whole of the country, but 4 people died from a bumblebee.
Yeah.
So why are we spending billions of pounds and hours of police time protecting against terrorism?
That's one of the most enlightful comments I've ever heard.
Well, it's true though.
Well, look,
that's the thing. It's true. 4 people died from a bumblebee. I can't remember what year it was.
But don't worry, the public. The next year, 3 gay guys will get beheaded in a park, and maybe in a concert in a leap year. They might blow up 22 kids. But don't worry. Don't worry, a bumblebee will kill 4.
I'm not saying don't take them into account. I'm just saying that we are. I mean, the terrorism threat was used to drain the public funds. Billions were spent on the terrorist threat, and it was unnecessary. There's the virus thing. That is another thing that was used to absolutely rinse the general public. And guess what? Next it's going to be, right, we need to bolster up our defences because the Russians are coming. No, they ain't. The Russians are going to rob their people and say we need to, sort of spend more money on defence because NATO are coming. NATO are going to say to all their home nations, we need to spend more money on defence. And all the Lockheeds and the Blackwaters and stuff like that, the arms companies are going to get absolutely minted on public money that should be spent getting a decent old bill service, getting a decent national health service, but we're again fooled into thinking that there is a threat that, whilst is real, is nothing like what they're saying.
Especially if you're going to be feeding into the whole fucking propaganda and all that shit, and you've got one side listening to the media, you've got fucking people who are arguing against that, listening to the extreme side of the alternative views. They're clashing each other, but this is designed exactly to fucking cause this kind of tension. Because you're too busy. Hang on, you're too busy fighting each other about shit like this to be coming together and fighting against the real fucking enemy.
Agreed.
But the point I was making, and I want to state this, like I was trying to say, I make this abundantly clear. I'm not saying everybody who's coming over in the dinghies or anything like that are terrorists, but I'm saying the opportunity and the chance is there for them to do so if there were those people there, and I say if there were those kinds of people who are determined enough who want to come over here and do that, simply because my point is there's not enough fucking security, there's not enough fucking checks at the borders to check their background to make sure they're viable and safe enough to come into the country. That's all I'm saying. The chances there, if anybody was determined enough to want to do that, then they have the means to do so because of our weak borders.
Let me just
bringing people in that we don't know the backgrounds of. We have to check them and vet them to make sure they're safe.
Would you put your family in a boat if the land was safe?
After land,
would you put your family in a bloody rubber dinghy?
France is safe.
In the busiest shipping channel in the world.
Get away from falling boats, yes.
The countries that they're passing through in order for them to try and get here, they are safe.
They are safe.
But they're pushing. Those safe countries are pushing migrants and refugees to us because they are lying.
And that's
not just lying now.
Hang on, guys. Hang on.
He's just lying.
You have to ask yourself this question.
I know what goes on.
Hold on. Why? Right? You have to ask. Why are they so determined to come to the UK?
Land of milk and honey. I don't blame them, but that's the reality.
Because we are, like I said, we're a soft touch. We don't have the fucking strict borders in place, which we should have, in order to keep our country safe. They see
Germany are far more accommodating. Germany are far more accommodating. I believe France are as well.
But we are.
You haven't got a clue, have you? You haven't got a clue. France is.
I'll go back 10 seconds. Watch Pap, like, get ready. He gets ready. I should have said it, but watch.
Well,
but we are.
You haven't got a clue, have you? You haven't got a clue.
What?
France is burning.
But my
France
turn.
is burning.
Sorry?
My turn. Listen, we're obviously all going to have slightly different views, okay, on certain aspects. I think what I don't want this to turn into is where anybody.
Okay, so that's about it. I realised that I was. Yeah, I realised that